Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tim Feller, and I am from Arizona State University. I'm the education librarian. I've been there for about a year. My talk today is on mapping for neurodiversity, okay? So I just want to start off with a question. Has anyone ever felt lost, overwhelmed in a big city? Maybe Boston? Okay, awesome. Sometimes, you know, you're out, you're traveling, you think, oh, this is great. You know, I'll go to the middle of Tokyo and it'll be wonderful. And then you get there, and there's thousands and thousands and millions of people, and sometimes you just want to go home, right? So as a child, I often felt like that. When I was 8 years old, my dad bought me two books. The first was the 1996 Rand McNally Road Atlas. I read this thing, looked at this thing cover to cover, brought it everywhere with me, to friends' houses, to school. I would trace the outline of Route 66, the American Southwest, just imagining what it would be like to travel, to drive, to see the Grand Canyon. Probably why I moved to Arizona in the end from Toronto. But I realized that maps helped me to process the world. They were safe, secure, detailed layers of information on a page that just seemed to make sense to me. It'd be another 20 years before I would receive a diagnosis of being neurodivergent, and as I look back, I can sense that maps were always a safe place, a refuge from a chaotic world. Now, there is another book, but I'm going to wait to the end to tell you what that one is. So I just want to introduce some big ideas today. Maps should be made for everyone. I think that's kind of obvious. However, we know that most of the world was not designed for neurodivergent people. I'm going to talk about what that means. What is neurodiversity? But I just want you to think this basic idea that maps should be for everyone. They should be as inclusive as possible and showcase a wide range of data that anyone can use to live a better life, to understand the city or neighborhood that they live in, to thrive. And I think OpenStreetMap can really be a leader in this area. I think it has the potential to really transform the way that neurodivergent people interact with technology and build their own worldviews. Okay, so what is neurodiversity? Any show of hands, does anyone know what neurodiversity is? Has anyone heard the term before? Okay, that's really great actually. So probably why you're here at this talk, right? Because you know about it. So you may have been told, you know, neurodiversity is this collection of ideas, of identities of people. It actually came about in 1997 from an Australian sociologist by the name of Judy Singer. And she was watching the movie Grease, and there's a scene in Grease where the nerd, Eugene Felnick, gets pushed down some stairs, and everybody laughs at him. And she thought, that's just not right, you know? Why do we celebrate, you know, bullying the nerd? So she coined this term neurodiversity, and it has since exploded into this concept, into this, sorry, I'm talking too loud, into this idea that there's many different brains, okay? So we've got things like autism, ADHD, dyslexia, Tourette's. Different great minds, as said, don't think alike, okay? So it's this idea that just as there is diversity in other forms in the human population, there is neurodiversity. So difference of minds, but it's very hard to see just by looking at someone, what type of brain they have, right? How they process information, how they make sense of the world. We're looking at about 1 billion people. Now, a lot of people go undiagnosed with something. This is because just diagnostic criteria in many countries is not advanced. The autism diagnosis rate in places like California is now as high as like 1 in 32, 1 in 33. So this just shows you it's a massive part of the population. And within neurodiversity, there is so much diversity. Each person really has a unique sensory profile and processing system, and way of communication, ones that non-neurodiverse people just perhaps don't fully quite grasp yet. We're trying to find these languages to communicate, and I think maps can be one of those great languages. This is a fun map made by some folks so it's called StimPunks. So these are just some of the features of the autism experience. There's a lot of information up there. I don't have time to go over it in detail, but there's this idea of monotropism. So typically, a lot of neurodivergent people have hyperfixations on certain interests, can study those things in great, vast detail. And I think for me, one of those things was maps. So I'm really happy that I fell into that. Forever endlessly fascinating and wonderful. And so this connects to the ideas that we need to start mapping places in the world that are safe, welcoming, sensorily grounded, and wonderful for neurodivergent people, okay? Neurodivergent people have a lot of time usually keeping and holding employment. Some studies have shown that the unemployment rate is as high as 80%, 85%. Many of people who are so-called high-functioning often struggle with things like masking, which is camouflaging your neurodivergent traits because you don't feel they're going to be accepted by others. It's a population that needs a lot of support, a lot of care, compassion, and understanding. So I'm just going to go over a few examples of the places that do exist in the world. This is at the Pittsburgh International Airport. This is a sensory lounge that was created for travelers. I think it's pretty fantastic that this is at an airport because we know airline travel is already stressful, but the unpredictability, uncertainty, and social demands can really be overwhelming for people who are neurodivergent. So it's great to see things like this that do exist. This is in Gilbert, Arizona. All of Gilbert, Arizona's town parks have been autism certified. So there's accreditation boards that do certify public places. And they use what's called a PECS communication board. So if two neurodiverse children are playing together, they can communicate with each other through pictures. And this is an idea that communication is not simply verbal, it's not simply body language, there's many ways to communicate, okay? So I'll just leave that, you guys can read it. I talked about unmasking and masking. There's also this idea that neurodiverse people, particularly people with autism, need to stim. So these are sort of vocal and behavioral things to self-regulate often overwhelmed nervous systems, okay? So I believe that OpenStreetMap can really help here. And I found a huge problem with Google Maps that I do believe OpenStreetMap can actually be so much better than Google Maps. We're gonna jump to Toronto for a little case study. This is called Sarang Kitchen. So this is a Korean restaurant and cafe, and they are run by a neurodiverse couple, and this business was created for people who, it was a sensory-based business. They have specialized hours, they have sensory toys. They celebrate all minds. It's a wonderful place and a refuge for, neurodiverse people to kind of come to. However, if you go to Google Maps, it's really not super obvious what they offer. So you can see here, there's the listing, Sarang Kitchen, some of the different tags that are proposed. So casual, yes, cozy, okay. LGBTQ plus friendly, that's great. It's female owned. University students might like to go there. The amenities, Wi-Fi, washroom. You don't really find neurodivergent until the comments section. And there's only 29 listings of that word, okay? Platter, tipping, fried chicken, halal, beat it out. So you wouldn't really know, right? If you were just to look at this. It's really hard to find this data. So how can OpenStreetMap be different, okay? So as I checked the sensory tag, it turns out there have been a few uses of it, and mainly for audible, okay? So we're talking about probably quieter places. The chronology suggests that people are tagging more sensory-based things, places. The statistics aren't great, though. It's just not being used all that much. Wonderfully, I stumbled upon a Reddit post, and someone had suggested that we make maps more sensory friendly. This is in the autism group. And I'm really proud to say that I got in touch with the person, and they're sitting here in this presentation, and his name's Kevin, and he's here, and he can help answer any questions you have. But it was really great to see this. And so this kicked off this idea that we need to be tagging things differently. So there was a proposal done for sensory-friendly tagging. Okay, so this is you can tag Serang Kitchen with a yes value, and that would mean that other users could see, okay, this might be a place that honors sensory needs, has special times. There's a lot more to this than I'm able to tell you right now, but I went ahead and I just tagged Serang Kitchen. It didn't have a lot of data already for it, but it's hard to see probably, but I went sensory friendly yes there, so just a small step. But there's lots of other tags that people can use, okay? So we're talking about things like lighting. Does it have a sensory room? What's the crowd level like? Busy? If it's in a big city, it might be very busy. What's the visual clarity, right? So I guess what I'm trying to encourage is to try to think like someone with a different brain, okay? Try to think of like someone that life is more challenging because your brain processes sensory information differently, all right? And when you go and visit, when you explore cities, when you walk in and out of cafes, bookshops, churches, ask yourself, would this be suitable for someone with autism, ADHD, dyslexia, just try to empathize with a different group of people, different brains. You can scan that QR code quickly if you want, and that will take you to the OSM wiki page. Sorry, I'll go back to it later because I know it's we're running out of time. So I just wanted to talk about the pro tips. So I've already mentioned tagging, but involve neurodivergent people in what you do, okay? If you're educators, do hackathons. Use gamified resources. Map Roulette is wonderful. People love Pokemon Go. Use that as a way to guide neurodiverse people to wonderful sensory areas, whether they be parks. Encourage them to explain their story and how they interact with the world. I found the autistic youth that I work with love GeoGuessr. They're just like insanely good at it. And I think these are wonderful forays into mapping and geography. And then also look out for accreditation. There's a lot of accreditation boards, and these can certify businesses and medical centers, places. Yeah. And then lastly, I think it's just to become champions. So educate others, draw others' awareness to this, try and build it into your own work. And I think we'll all sort of create a better world for neurodivergent people. Okay, so we're back. This is the second book, okay? So I even brought it. Oh my gosh, I brought it. Okay, well maybe I didn't. Anyways, I've had this book since I was, a kid, and I was in Scouts. And I read this thing, my dad gave me this, and it's cover to cover, and it's crazy things. It's like setting traps for rabbits, knowing which seeds and nuts you can eat in the forest, recognizing various clouds, is a thunderstorm gonna come, how to build a shelter, in a forest. All really useful things, right, when you live in a city. But it got me thinking, I think a lot of times neurodiverse people just want to survive. They're just holding on for dear life. And something like a map, OSM, can make the difference whether somebody gets out and goes to a therapy appointment, or maybe where they apply to a job, or to see that one social connection that's going to make a difference in their lives. So we need to think about survival, yes, but also encouraging thriving. What does thriving look like, and how can maps be a tool to help people thrive? So I encourage you to think of a world in which all can participate, and we're just at the beginning of this with OpenStreetMap. So let the mapping begin. Thank you so much.
So we might have time for one short question.
I just want to say thank you so much for creating this presentation. I have 2 nephews who are autistic, and my sisters, you know, they feel so unheard, and they don't like to take their children out because they're afraid of like what could happen. And knowing that there's spaces available specifically to meet these needs, like my nephew stims so much, and my sister's afraid of like what could happen. And I think OSM would be an amazing tool for like just people like mothers or like parents who need to find a space for their children. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your comment. And I totally agree. I think more spaces need to exist, and especially when people design spaces. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.